As I've been saying in previous videos, the point about the first impulse when you are feeling miserable and defenseless is that you want to take your life. Now, I don't know why English has this expression to take your life, because, well, you're not taking it anywhere, you're just ending it. But the point is, well, Romanian actually has that also. But when it comes to life and, the physical body, the first impulse is always that of ending your life when you're too miserable. It is an impulse. But in a sick society, it's always something good, or it's always something bad. It's only good if it serves other people but not you, right? If it serves those who are so-called in charge. The point about wanting to commit suicide, this is nothing else but meaning, right? Because when you give too much importance to meaning, the mind is dependent on meaning, right? The physical mind that we have, not the mind as a whole, because the mind has multiple levels and, well, most of them are beyond the physicality, but the physical mind, that of this physical body, when there is too much misery, it simply wants to end things prematurely. Now, the point is, many people commit suicide because that's how they think they will escape the pain. Instead of living a whole life of pain, why not commit suicide? But you'll live an almost eternity of pain afterwards, because the pain and karma that you create through suicide will be so much, you will need probably even thousands of years to be able to simply reincarnate. And, well, the question then comes, do you think you will find another suitable body, right? Because to reach liberation, well, you will need a body that is capable of awareness, right? And up till now, well, the human body is the only one that can reach the ultimate levels of awareness, right? And this is also due to a lot of natural aspects and, well, let's call them seasons of evolution. But when we are to speak about suicide, suicide will always be an impulse. Now, this impulse needs to be understood, that this impulse exists within the body. A sick society will tell you that everything about you is bad, right? Even thinking about something bad is a sin, Christianity says. But you can't control what thoughts go through your mind. You can control which thoughts will go into your mind, more or less, but all the thoughts that you have put into your mind through your whole life, so therefore beyond this level of awareness that you have reached at a certain point, right? And thoughts that you used to think and emotions you used to have even thousands of lifetimes before, they will still, swarm around there. Sooner or later you may become aware of some of those. And obviously, if you are taught that everything that you think is a sin, well, you will feel useless because you will feel powerless. That's how narcissism establishes control, by disempowering people. It's always, the place of power of everyone is always their first target. That's how you also control a country. You simply disable their capital, right? Well, not necessarily the capital city, but, the capital aspects of its functioning, the economy, the social, and so on and so forth. But the point about suicide is, well, it is ultimately an impulse. Many people don't commit suicide because, in every one of us, there is simply something which is very sure that there is more to life than, just what we have learned. It's also been specific to me, because I've been tempted by committing suicide many a times, but the point is, I was convinced that there has to be something else than the uselessness of what I was going through. So one has to understand that the mind is always an awkward aspect, right? When it comes to our physical body, well, we have multiple elements. Well, the physical body has something which is called the life energies, which are technically that which represent our existence, right? The energies that, well, exist in the physical body and make sure that we have, let's say, the best experience of life. Well, not the best explanation, but there's too much to speak about this to convey in a few minutes of a video. So our physical body, all by itself, right, is not independent from creation, but if you leave it somewhere and you provide it with the needs, right, to exist, it's obviously capable of living on its own, right? Any human being can live on its own, just like any animal can live on its own, so long as you provide them with some of the needs, right? And those needs that are provided are also part of creation. So you're not completely severed from creation, but you are meant to live and exist in such a way that it can, well, and it will live all by its own. Now, when it comes to living, beyond just this, well, the point is our physical body is always life oriented, right? Because we have the most important aspect of all, physical bodies that are alive, which is called instincts, right? And among these, we have the most important aspect, which is called self-preservation. Now, yes, there are a lot of people who are so superficial they don't seem to be using their self-preservation, or they don't even seem to realize that they would be in danger, but, well, that is their problem. That is their part. But, instinctively speaking, right, we have this aspect of survival. Survival means that you're fully life-oriented. Whatever happens, you must live. That's always the case, right? When you're sick, you must do something to, remove the sickness, right? To make it go away. When something hurts, obviously you have to do something to remove the pain. So our physical body, is deeply rooted in this aspect of survival. Now, survival can be used as a tool to simply control people or control animals and the such, yes, but ultimately it is a mean of preservation. Our life energies are also life oriented because, well, the way they function in parallel to the body, right? They do their own purposes, and they have to make sure that the physical body exists, right? And whatever happens, well, they do the best so that the body can do its best. So they are also, life-oriented. But if we go into the lower levels of the body, right, then we reach the physical mind. Now, the physical mind is technically just like almost everyone in this world. It's kind of always almost confused, if not fully confused, because whatever goes in the mind, it requires meaning, right? Life energy doesn't need meaning, right? Because it's already there, it knows what it has to do, it has its own intelligence, and that's what it's gonna do. It's not gonna do less, it's not gonna do more, right? Your impulses of survival, right? They don't need your mental meanings, right? They don't need you to call, something as danger, right? They know instinctively, right, from millions of years of evolution, they have their own databases, and they know that if they see a certain animal, they can assert it to, danger, or, well, peaceful, or partially dangerous, or whatever, right? There is enough of this evolutionary memory within us that we can rely on. Now, this obviously requires a connection towards the body, right? Being in a communion with our body, at least to a certain level. But if this exists, well, then, part of the problems of life are solved. Now, if we are to move even further, and, further and further, the point about the mind is you'll kind of always be, well, just like the mind is when you use it, you'll kind of always be confused if you stay too much in the mind. Is this good enough? Is this good? Is this other thing good? Should I do like this? Should I do like that? Right? When it comes to the emotional side, it's always confusable, I would say. Because emotions, they are always static in a way. I mean, if you feel lively, you feel lively. If you feel depressed, you are depressed, right? If you feel happy, you are happy, right? And obviously, your emotional field can be easily influenced by what you think. And obviously, each and every one thing influences the other. Because when you're sad, you can't think happy thoughts. You may try to, you may even for a bit, but on a whole, you'll be thinking, thoughts which align to your emotions. And when you are thinking about something, you're obviously having the right emotion, right? Because thought and emotion are very similar. Now, the problem with thought is, the mind is very vibrant, right? Now you can think something, the next moment you think something else, and then you can think something else, right? And these thoughts can each be of a different field of study, they can be of a different type of emotion, and, it's all about vibrancy. That's why there is so much chaos within the mind. But when it comes to emotions, once an emotion settles down, that's, gonna stay. If you're feeling happy, you're gonna feel for a while. If you're feeling sad, you're gonna feel for a while. And, well, so on and so forth. So, when it comes to the mind, the physical mind, that's, well, let's call it so, ultimately, it is more or less a tool for survival, because you will be using it as a data storage. Because ultimately, what do we use the brain for, right? Now, the brain has its own functions. It correlates with the body, yes, it functions within the body. It takes care of numerous processes. It does trillions of things per second. And it does so without our awareness. Because it doesn't require our awareness, right? It can handle breathing without us doing it consciously, although if we breathe consciously, it's a far more powerful sign of life. But it can breathe for us. It's, regulates blood pressure, like literally all the processes in the physical body, right? So ultimately, the only thing that we need to use the brain for is basically data storage. Since you are born, you will be drilled a lot of things into your mind. You will learn a language, you will learn, behavior, codes of conduct. Now, whether those will truly serve people around you or not, well, that will dictate how much you'll be to the detriment of the others. But ultimately, when it comes to life, the point is very simple. Everything that we put in our heads is, well, nothing but data, right? Because data would mean technically something that doesn't change. When you learn a certain language, the words that you learn, they're not gonna change, right? They will mean the same thing even, well, throughout your whole life, right? Some expressions might change a bit their meaning, but even if they change their meaning, they're still gonna be that. That's the point of data. It is something that doesn't change. If it changes a value, well, the value was changed, but then it is still preserved until it is changed again. That's the definition of data. So, datum is that which we acquire, right? A piece of datum here, a piece of datum there, and then we accumulate data. And the data is used to simply exist, right? In our mind, we have all sorts of ideas. Good things and bad things that happen to us became our life experience. And based on that, we have created some wisdom, let's say. And, well, we have learned that some things are good. Well, doing some things is good, doing some things is not worth it, doing some things doesn't benefit us, and so on and so forth. So technically it is data. And now all this data is still survival data, right? Because all that you acquire and use in your mind is technically survival, right? We need a language in order to survive in a social environment, right? Because if you're all by yourself and you function based on the tools that you have around you, you won't be needing a language, right? You don't need naturally to call things names, because if you call them somehow else, that won't change what those things are, right? If you call a bush something else than a bush, it's not going to change its shape, it's not going to feel ashamed, it's not going to change it anyways, right? So, when it comes to the mind, right, it's technically usable for survival, right? If we are to use our mind for survival, then, well, let's not forget that it's used only for that. But the problem is many people simply embrace that. And if they embrace the mind as too much, because the mind can provide such a good distraction from life problems. Because when you overthink, you are embracing the chaos that, well, exists only in the mind, but doesn't exist in reality. How things happen in this world? Well, ignorance occurs when you give too much importance to this tool, right? Instead of just taking it as a tool, you take it as much more. So, obviously, you will fall into the numerous traps that the mind has. The mind is full of traps. It has thousands upon thousands of layers, each one more or less capable of screwing us around. That is why everyone requires thousands, if not millions, of lifetimes to simply go through in order to reach certain levels of awareness and a certain karmic structure that is strong enough to remind you of things that happened to you from previous lives. And that's why some people feel intuitively that they have gone through certain things, even if in most cases in that life they may have gone through those but forgot about those. But there are very few cases in which the experience of other lifetimes kicks in, right? The first thing that one can speak about this is karmic memory. Because a child, right, an animal kid, let's say, a child that is born, they already have, you know, the impulse to survive. And let's say they may reach the period of their life, several days after or weeks, it depends on species, when they finally open their eyes and, well, they are capable of walking. And when they see something which is technically their enemy, they will already have an impulse to fear, right? They haven't been taught by their parents that, but the experience of all their predecessors, right, already kicks in. Because what wild animals are about, they're all about survival. Their survival instincts are so sharp that obviously they will be sharp in their children as well. So when it comes to suicide, suicide is usually meaning oriented, right? You feel that things in your life are against you, right? But they necessarily aren't. Life is all about, well, challenges. Yes, some challenges may be very hard for some people, obviously, but no one ever came here to have a very easy life, right? That's why there is also a prayer that says, well, don't pray for an easy life, pray to have the strength to go through a difficult life. Because a difficult life is a life filled with challenges. When you overcome challenges, there are the so-called rewards, and there is also that idea of having accomplished something, right? Although this serves nothing else than emotional fulfillment, let's say, emotions are also important as long as you understand those, as you understand their depths, and you don't allow them to simply influence you instead. Your emotions are the result, let's say, of your actions, right? And, well, some people may simply misinterpret those, but, well, each mental distortion will come with, well, their own results. But technically, the way you feel is valid. A sick society will tell you that how you feel is not important because, well, in a sick society you have to conduct self-destruction anyways. Because if you don't conduct self-destructions, the industries of this society cannot, well, in between inverted commas, help you, right? Because once you become broken, once you become ill, all the doors of this sick society open to you, right? You only need to be crazy to be accepted in this world, because that's when you are easiest to control, when you are in need of help, right? And narcissist people, what do they seek? Control. How can they easiest gain control? Well, when you need them, right? That is why in this world there's also that quote, well, I don't like calling people because when they call me, I am the expert, right? So expectation is also a very powerful thing in this world, because once you have expectations of others, well, I always call expectations as the antechamber of disappointment. Because expectations, well, no one teaches you how to have healthy boundaries with other people, so obviously you won't be having healthy expectations either. When you have expectations too great, you feel that everything is a disappointment. And obviously you'll feel disempowered, you'll feel that there is, well, everything that there is in this life is superficial, you will feel disempowered again, and obviously you will feel miserable. And when you feel miserable, you'll obviously want to conduct self-destruction sooner or later. So the point about life is everything is cyclical. If people live in cycles, they will reenact that which they have gone through, and they will reenact it again and again and again until they have built enough suffering or whatever is needed to simply transcend that cycle, because that's what a cycle is. You go through something and, well, you go through it again and you go through it again. All our thoughts, impressions, and the such, they are cycles, right? Because if you think that you suck, well, you have created a cycle, and that cycle will repeat. Because you may almost transcend it, but it will come back. Because when you almost transcend the cycle, you try to finish it, so it starts again. The point is, when it starts, just let it go, because you don't need to judge it again, right? You'll feel bad because, hey, I'm feeling useless again when I was supposed to feel good, like the universe is sabotaging me, people are sabotaging me, and you'll also start another cycle, which is called, well, victimization, right? You always feel as a victim of circumstance, but you're not a victim of circumstance. Things just happen for you, okay? Things will happen. there is no meaning that you need to give to life, because life is beyond the mind, so therefore it cannot be, let's say, defined. Everything that is beyond the physical mind obviously cannot be defined, because it cannot be perceived in a way that words can describe, right? And even if you describe it in a certain way through words, you therefore give it meaning. But if something is beyond meaning, well, most likely you will create a very minute version of that, right? Let's call it a superficial version of that. So all this being said, hopefully this video was introspective, and well, I might continue on this theme some other time. And you are appreciated. Take care of yourselves. Ferengian Port signing out.